First, the blame game continues in the explosion on the Deepwater Horizon. From Congress,
the blowout preventer had a significant leak in the key hydraulic system.
To the companies involved.
Second, why did Transocean's blowout preventer, the key fail-safe mechanism, fail to shut in the well and release the rig?
The most significant clue is that these events occurred after the well construction process was essentially complete.
To America's reaction. Seize their assets now! So while protesters march and Congress and companies investigate, the industry awaits judgment and possibly tighter regulations on offshore drilling. But is the payoff from deepwater offshore drilling worth the risk? Clean Skies Dan Goldstein takes a look at the chance for this kind of drilling continuing after the Horizon disaster.
What are the regulations for these ultra-deep wells that you can just comment briefly on that give our people confidence that this deep drilling can be done safely?
A key question to oil executives from Louisiana's senior senator. And after the BP disaster, the first deepwater rig to have sunk in U.S. waters, the drilling industry is struggling for answers.
As far as technology is concerned, we feel that we've got a handle on it, but obviously things are happening that we don't quite understand.
Deepwater drilling is becoming an industry standard as oil reserves closer to shore dry up. Just a decade ago, there were little more than a dozen deepwater rigs drilling in the Gulf. Today, almost 10 times that.
We are tapping out a lot of the oil reserves that we have onshore and in shallow water, and one of the areas where we've shown a lot of success is in the deep water. It's contributing a lot of the oil that our country is consuming right now.
60+% of the offshore production is in greater than 1,000 feet of water. So without deep water, we're in even a tighter bind.
And in the last decade, the industry is expanding to drill as far as 30,000 feet down, thanks to platforms like this one, BP's Thunder Horse. It's a rig that goes where the oil is, deep in the Gulf of Mexico, home to nearly 40 billion barrels of untapped oil. The Energy Information Administration says that's enough to supply the U.S. for as long as 5 years.
We have to keep in mind that we need this resource to drive our cars and to fuel the economy.
And it's not just the U.S. that relies on deepwater drilling. There are more than 1,200 deep and ultra-deep water platforms around the world, from the North Sea to West Africa to Southeast Asia. And many countries and companies are watching to see what the U.S. does.
Those are the three big areas that you're seeing the developments occur or have historically occurred. I think some of probably the faster growing area and the area that has garnered the most interest and has made a number of big significant strides has been in Brazil, where they've really pushed the edge of the envelope in deepwater drilling and extraction. So that's the area where I think would have the most comparability to the Gulf of Mexico in terms of watching and observing and monitoring these changes.
And the industry could lose tax breaks as well. BP's Thunder Horse cost $5 billion to build and nearly $1 million a day to operate. That's why back in the 90s, the industry lobbied Congress to pass an exemption for royalty payments to the federal government during deepwater drilling. That was to help spur production when prices were low. Now, in the aftermath of the rig disaster, one expert says Congress could kill that tax break.
Certainly it'll be looked at again. There's a distinct possibility that it could be repealed or cut back to some extent.
And other changes could be on the way. More regulation, like requiring extra blowout preventers or BOPs, which were at the heart of the Gulf disaster, along with switches to activate safety devices remotely.
It's possible that Congress could dictate that we have to add that. There's a possibility also that we might have to add a second blowout preventer, perhaps one at the surface to go along with subsea ones in deep water, in ultra deep water, to be able to solve this problem.
There are going to be regulatory and potentially legislative changes that will result from this accident that are going to change the way operators look at deepwater oil and gas exploration, both domestically here in the Gulf of Mexico as well as in other areas of the world. Probably going to see a lot of changes in safety inspections, potentially in the number of inspections, the frequency of the inspections.
And that could add to the price at the pump.
It's going to cost more money, which means it'll cost more money at the pump and anywhere else we use oil.
Despite expected regulatory changes, the experts insist deepwater drilling is here to stay.
Deepwater is a very important source of crude oil supplies for the United States in terms of our overall domestic crude oil production mix. So to just kind of turn that off right now is not very realistic or practical.
It is worth the risk because we really have no choice at this point.
Without deepwater drilling, the industry says the options are few. Drill on land, drill closer onshore, or import more oil. Dan Goldstein, Clean Skies News.